fans of NVIDIA, your long-awaited wait is now over. The GTX 680 is now hitting the streets. So people out there have been waiting, hey, it's your lucky day. What we'll be looking at today is we'll actually be looking at the GTX 680. This is the reference sample from the folks over at NVIDIA. On launch date, all the cards you should be seeing according to NDA will be all based on the reference design. After this launch and the days coming to follow, you should see other manufacturer cards hit the street. So I know you guys have been waiting. You want to see what all the specs are. You want to see the testing. So let's get into this shit right now. All right, everybody, so before we actually jump in and look at the technology, let's actually take a look at the physical card itself. The card has a black shroud encompassing the entire card, just like most of the reference cards that we see from NVIDIA. Now, this card sized in at 10 inches long by 4 inches high by 1.5 inches thick. So it should be able to fit in most systems, and it's actually pretty much about the same size as the previous 7970 we just took a look at. Now, some interesting things about the card is the way that the power is gone into the card. As you can see on the side here, NVIDIA has changed the way that it mounts. Usually, both of these connectors are either mounted in one direction. These two, your cables actually plug in both towards the center. Now, this card also uses 195 watts of TDP, so that's pretty good for a card of this caliber. You guys can see they've got the GeForce GTX logo right here on the side. Back here on the back, we have 2 of the SLI fingers, so this card will do quad SLI. We also have the PCI insertion. This is PCI 3.0. Ivy Bridge is just around the corner, so hopefully we're going to see some really improved results with that. Flip it around, let you guys take a look at the rear I/O. It features a single and a dual link DVI connection. Also features a standard display port and a standard HDMI connection. It's good to see NVIDIA moving into the world with the new display port, because a lot of people actually have those monitors. Inside the new Kepler GPC resides the next generation streaming multiprocessor, or SMX. Now, SMX significantly lowers power, and with Kepler, each SMX processor contains up to 192 CUDA cores, and compared to the SM technology on the Fermi, it has 2 times the performance per watt. Okay, so we all know this card's based off the new 28 nanometer process. That's a given. This card also has 1,536 CUDA cores, 128 texture unit, and 32 ROP units. Most of you guys, I'm sure, are familiar with Intel's Turbo Boost technology, which takes the CPU and automatically overclocks it depending on the conditions and where it's running. Now, this is also happening with NVIDIA's new GTX 680. The card has a base clock of 1006 megahertz, but it gets boosted up to 1058 megahertz depending on the conditions of the GPU. Dedicated hardware circuitry constantly monitors GPU power consumption, and GPU Boost automatically adjusts clocks to achieve the maximum possible clock speeds while remaining within a predefined power target. So this means if there's any time that you have a game that can actually be boosted up and the GPU knows this, it automatically boosts it up into the next power category, making your game run even better. This card also features 2 gigabytes of GDDR5 memory and a 256-bit memory interface. It has a 1502 megahertz memory clock that has 192.26 gigabytes a second of total memory bandwidth. Lots of room there to make your card run really fast. One of the greatest technologies that I think about this card, though, is the new adaptive VSync. When frame rates drop below 60 frames per second, NVIDIA's adaptive VSync technology automatically disables VSync, allowing frame rates to run at their natural rate, effectively reducing stutter, something I really hate. Once frame rates return to 60 frames per second, adaptive VSync turns VSync back on to reduce tearing. This is going to be something really cool. This should also help a lot with people running an SLI configuration where you guys know we get a lot of micro stuttering. Some of the last really cool things about this card are that you're going to be able to use 4 displays on a single card. I actually saw this at an NVIDIA demo. It kind of looks funny because you actually have 3 monitors on the bottom and then 1 on the top, but that could be cool because you could run your surround gaming and still be able to access your game from the top screen. This thing also has native 3D Vision surround support and has support fully for the new 4K monitor and multi-stream audio support. One last thing I want to go with you folks before I jump into testing is talk about the Tessellation. So I'm using the new Rampage 4 This is their Formula motherboard. This is a really good motherboard for the X79 platform. I'm also using Intel's entry-level 3820. Now this is their i7 CPU that's actually affordable and it runs at 3.6 gigahertz. For memory, I'm using a whopping 32 gigabytes of quad channel Kingston memory. This memory is set at XMP Profile 1 running at 1600 megahertz. And lastly, for the hard drives, since a lot of people can't afford SSDs, I went ahead and with a traditional hard drive. So I'm using the Western Digital. This is the Caviar Black 2 terabyte. This is also the new SATA 3 edition. Let's now jump in and let's rock out with our socks out to the benchmark song. Oh, hey, just gotta tell you right off the bat, flat out, this new GTX 680 rocks almost as hard as my song from Pain Cylinder. Woo! This is a really good card. Let's start out right off the bat. Let's talk about the very, very positive things about this card. The first positive thing I want to talk to you guys about is the price. This card's gonna hit the market at about $499. That's right, put on the cheer. $499 for the top of the line card. That's really cool considering that the 7970 card is at least $50 more for even their entry level card. The second positive thing about this card is that it only has 195 watts of TDP. That's a lot lower than previous generation cards, and for a card that runs this well, that's pretty cool. The third thing I like is this card runs almost totally silent. Even with this thing has its new turbo boost type technology running, the card throttles for a few seconds and then throttles back down. It's not really loud at all compared to some of the other cards. So back in the old days when you hear people talking about their cards running like a lawnmower and stuff like that, no, this card does not run like that at all. And the fourth thing, and this is a really great technology thing that I like, is the new adaptive VSync. I really hate all of the game stuttering in games when I'm playing games when it's losing its VSync. This is going to be really great stuff. So now what happens is basically if your game, if it's losing it, it automatically recognizes it and makes sure that your game doesn't get that jitteriness by compensating. These are all of the really cool positive things about this card. There are a couple of negative things about the card. I was thinking with Kepler that this card was going to be really a lot faster than the 7970. It's really not that much faster than the 7970. Yes, it is, just enough to be able to say, hey, I won. But you guys know, in a race, it doesn't matter whether it's an inch or 2,000 feet. If you win, you win, and that said, NVIDIA's winning. Now, the biggest negative about this card is I was really expecting with 28 nanometer technology for the card to run cooler. The card did not run cooler. In fact, the card actually ran a little bit hotter than my stock GTX 580, but the card is actually pumping out a lot more stuff. So at the end of the day, I gotta say, these are just the newest drivers and everything else. This is a serious editor's choice here on Motherboards.org for new technology, for being the fastest single card around, and for the price. All winning stuff from the folks over at NVIDIA. For you guys out there who've been waiting for Kepler, your day hath arrived.